In the small and peaceful town of Willow Creek, the shadow of tragedy cast its dark veil on a day that should have been just another ordinary day. Young Emily, an 8-year-old girl with a smile that could light up any room, was found lifeless in the local park, the place where she used to play every afternoon. "Oh, heavens, how could this happen?" murmured the townspeople, incredulous in the face of the cruel reality. The park, once a symbol of joy and children's laughter, now transformed into a nightmare scene. It was as if the trees whispered macabre secrets and the cold wind carried a dark premonition. On the night of the tragedy, the howling winds and frantically swaying branches seemed to herald impending doom. Every corner of the park, now deserted and shrouded in a sinister atmosphere, reminded the residents of the irreparable loss. Emily's family was devastated. Her parents, once so full of life, now dragged themselves through the days as if trapped in a nightmare they couldn't wake from. Her mother, in particular, couldn't accept the reality. "It's not possible," she murmured to herself as she wandered around the house, expecting at any moment to hear Emily's sweet voice calling her to play. The nights were even worse. The sepulchral silence that settled in the house was interrupted only by cries of pain and longing. But it was on one of these nights that Emily's mother noticed something strange. The girl's toys, previously carefully stored, began to appear in unusual places. A doll here, a teddy bear there. At first, she tried to rationalize, thinking it was just her mind playing tricks. But soon, she realized there was something more. In the dead of night, she began to hear soft laughter, like a distant echo. Children's laughter coming from Emily's room. "It must be my imagination," she thought, trying to dispel the growing fear inside her. But the laughter continued, and with it, a growing sense that Emily was trying to communicate. Could it be possible? Was her daughter's spirit really there, desperately trying to reach the living world? The whispers and laughter did not cease, and the atmosphere in the house became increasingly oppressive. Every moved object, every unexpected sound, carried with it an enigmatic and disturbing message. Emily's mother felt a mix of fear and hope, as if her daughter's presence was closer than ever. But what did it all mean? And what was Emily trying to say? As the mother struggled to understand the signs, other events began to occur outside the home. The school where Emily studied was also not immune to manifestations from beyond. After Emily's funeral, a disturbing silence fell over the family's house. The nights, once filled with laughter and bedtime stories, were now marked by a sepulchral quiet. But soon, Emily's mother began to notice strange things. Initially, they were just small changes. A doll she was sure she had put away reappearing on the bed. A storybook opening by itself to the last page Emily had read. Day by day, these phenomena became more frequent and impossible to ignore. Emily's toys appeared in unusual places, as if moved by an invisible hand. Emily's favorite teddy bear, once left in the corner of the room, was found sitting at the kitchen table one morning, as if waiting for breakfast. "This can't be happening," the mother thought, trying to find rational explanations for the inexplicable. The nights brought with them a new layer of terror. Soft, almost imperceptible sounds echoed through the hallways. Children's laughter, so familiar and yet so strange, could be heard in the silence of the early morning hours. It was as if Emily was trying to communicate, trying to cross the veil between the world of the living and the dead. Emily's mother began to wonder if her daughter's spirit was truly there, trapped between two worlds, unable to find peace. Each event seemed laden with symbolism, as if each moved toy, each laugh in the dark, was a coded message from Emily. But what was the message? And why couldn't Emily rest in peace? The house, once a place of love and safety, was now immersed in an atmosphere of fear and mystery. The whispers in the dark became more persistent, and the feeling of being watched permeated every corner of the house. As Emily's mother tried to understand what was happening, the school where Emily studied began to witness equally unsettling phenomena. The strange events weren't confined to Emily's house alone. At the school, where she had been a beloved student, friends and teachers began to sense her presence in inexplicable and frightening ways. The first sign was a simple whisper. "Emily?" the teacher would ask upon hearing the name being called when no one else was around. Pencils, which had previously rested silently on desks, began to move on their own, drawing erratic patterns on blank papers. During classes, muffled laughter could be heard, sending shivers down the students' spines. "It's just our imagination," the teacher would say, trying to stay calm, but her voice trembled. Each laugh, each unexpected movement, seemed charged with a dark and incomprehensible energy. Mysterious notes began appearing in the backpacks of Emily's friends, written in a childish handwriting that everyone recognized. "I miss playing with you," read one note, leaving everyone with chills. The alliteration in the written words increased the sense that Emily was desperately trying to communicate. The school's hallways, once full of life and noise, now echoed with an invisible and unsettling presence. Emily's friends, now tormented by these occurrences, began to avoid school. Each day, the atmosphere grew heavier, and the feeling of being watched intensified. The events seemed to foreshadow something greater, something no one could fully understand. It was as if Emily was trying to convey a message, something that needed to be deciphered for her to find peace. As the students grappled with their growing fear, Jake, Emily's older brother, began to have disturbing visions. Jake, Emily's older brother, was struggling to cope with the loss of his sister. He felt responsible, haunted by the idea that he could have done something to prevent the tragedy. However, his suffering took a more terrifying form when he started having disturbing visions. In the depths of his sleepless nights, Emily appeared in his dreams, but she wasn't the cheerful, laughing Emily he knew. She was a distorted figure, shrouded in shadows, with eyes that expressed immense pain. One of those nights, Jake woke up gasping, sweat dripping down his face. In the dim light of his room, he saw Emily's silhouette standing in the corner. "Jake, why didn't you help me?" her voice echoed, but it was no longer sweet and childlike. It was filled with sadness and reproach. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. Emily's image vanished, leaving Jake with an indescribable sense of dread. Each day, the visions became more vivid and more terrifying. Emily appeared in different parts of the house, always with that expression of pain and despair. During dinner, Jake would look down the dark hallway and see his sister slowly waving, as if beckoning him to follow her. The intensity of these visions, exaggerated by hyperbole, made Jake's life unbearable. He was constantly on the verge of a breakdown, feeling the oppressive presence of his sister at every moment. "Why is this happening to me?" he wondered, his voice trembling under the weight of fear and guilt. Metaphors of shadows and lights danced in his mind, creating a continuous scene of torment. The personification of remorse and sadness in the form of his deceased sister was a burden he couldn't bear alone. Jake felt that Emily was trying to say something he desperately needed to understand. Meanwhile, the supernatural events in the house intensified. The entire family was on the brink of collapse, trying to find a solution to the torment that seemed endless. Emily's mother, desperate, began seeking answers in places she had never imagined visiting. She knew she had to do something, anything, to bring peace to her daughter's spirit and her own family. And so, amid the growing despair, the story was heading towards a revelation that no one was prepared to face. As the supernatural events intensified, Emily's family was on the verge of collapse. Objects flew, doors slammed shut by themselves, and Emily's presence seemed increasingly strong and desperate. "We have to do something," exclaimed the father, feeling the tension grow each day. The mother, determined to bring peace to her daughter and family, began seeking answers in places she had never imagined visiting before. On one particularly stormy night, Emily's mother decided to seek the help of a medium, someone who could communicate with the beyond. Desperate, she arranged a spiritual session at home, hoping this might finally provide answers and perhaps bring peace to Emily's spirit. The family gathered in the living room, where the atmosphere was charged with tension and expectation. The medium, a man with a serene appearance and a calm voice, began to invoke Emily's spirit. "We are here to help you find peace, Emily," he whispered, as the candlelight flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The room seemed to vibrate with an almost palpable energy, and then something extraordinary happened. Emily's figure appeared in the center of the room, her face illuminated by a soft, ethereal light. "Mom, Dad, Jake," she said, her voice a distant echo but filled with emotion. "I miss all of you." Tears streamed down the mother's face as she reached out, trying to touch her daughter. "Emily, we miss you too. What can we do to help you?" Emily looked at each of them, her eyes full of deep sadness but also gratitude. "I needed you to know that I'm okay, that I love you, and that you shouldn't blame yourselves for what happened. I needed you to let me go." With these words, Emily's figure began to slowly fade away, while a feeling of peace enveloped the room. The family sat in silence, absorbing what had just happened. Jake, feeling a tremendous weight lifted from his shoulders, was finally able to cry for the first time since Emily's death. The father, still with tears in his eyes, embraced his wife and son, feeling that despite everything, they would be able to overcome this tragedy together. From that day on, the house was at peace. The whispers ceased, objects stopped moving, and Emily's presence was no longer a source of fear and despair, but a loving and comforting memory. The family knew that wherever Emily was, she had finally found peace. And with that, they too could begin to heal their own wounds, knowing that their little Emily would always be in their hearts.